Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. I know I should stop doing these videos where I just rant about things and go back to talking about good runs of comics, but I just have to talk about this for a little bit longer. I want to talk about Splatto Del Gato comics again, just for a little bit. Now, Diversity in Comics put out a video just a day or so ago talking about the comic industry as a club. And he talked about that, and he asked the question, what do you think? What do we think about describing the comic industry as a club? And that question really stuck in my mind. And I left a comment on his video about what I thought. But I think it's a really good question to ask, and it's a really big question, and it's an important question to ask because I think there's a better way to describe it. Describing it as a club would probably appeal to the most people and get them to understand it, but there's a different way of looking at it, a very important way of looking at it. He talked about in his video, you can't stop people from getting into an industry. He used the analogy of you want to get into the lumber industry. If you have all the money, if you have all the people, if you have all the machinery, and you're ready to go and you want to start as part of the industry, people can't stop you from becoming part of that industry. Well, that's the way it is now. That's the way it is in this part of the world. That's not always the way it was. And I just go back to what I know about, and I know about medieval history because that's what I had to study for a long time. But it sounds like a medieval guild. That's what that is. Okay? If you lived in a medieval society and you wanted to be a baker, you couldn't put out a sign saying bakery and then start baking bread. You just couldn't. All right? You had to train under a master. You had to be an apprentice. You had to be an apprentice for a while, and you had to just do what he told you, and you had to practice your craft and then become part of the guild, and then maybe they'll let you be a baker. Okay? That's the way it used to be, and that's the way that this industry, the comic industry, is operating right now. You have to train under somebody that they approve of, and then if you get to do what they tell you to do enough and you show that you can do what they're telling you to do, then you can be a part of the industry. That's what the comic industry looks like right now. But the more I thought about it that way, it made me think of the fact that the whole point of a medieval guild, the whole point of a guild altogether, is that you produce a good product. You produce a superior product. Even if you're producing bread, it becomes almost an art form. And I know everybody will think to themselves, well, the comic industry is not producing a good product in the least. They're producing one of the worst products they've ever produced. But I gotta take issue with that and say, no, they're not. Because you gotta think about what their product is. Because right now, their product is not comic books. Their product is not good stories. Their product is not good art. Their product is ideology. This is what it is right now. They're trying to make ideologues. They're just making propaganda, if you want to put it in modern terms. That's their job. And they're doing it extremely well. They're putting out propaganda. Leftist propaganda. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. That's why they have this whole system set up with the gatekeepers, and this is how you get into it, and you got to do this and that to get into this industry. Because you're going to produce what we say you are. And again, the more I thought about it, it actually is described a little better by something else than a medieval guild, and that would be the fact that the way that they're acting, the way that this, we'll call it so-called business, works with the comic pros, is that they're acting like a religion, like a culty kind of religion. That's what it is. Okay? You gotta adhere to their strict moral system. If you don't follow the rules, you are sinning. If you don't follow the rules time after time, you're excommunicated. You're thrown out of their society. And it's a leftist religion. As much as the left keeps on pounding on religion and showing how much they hate it, they sure as heck act like one. And why is this all important? It's important because of the fact that I'm not saying that comics and the comic pros are themselves a religion. I'm saying that they are part of a religion, and it's a part of a leftist religion is what they are. Comic books have a key part in that. because they are the glossy little pamphlets that are handed out to people at the door. When these culty little religious people come to your door, they always have some pamphlet, they always have some little book that they're trying to give you, they're trying to put in your hands. That's what comic books are right now. And that's a little bit disturbing when you think about it. Because, of course, they are trying to use these things to appeal to what they see as children and the weak-minded. Okay, that's what they're for. They're selling their culty religion, their leftist culty religion, to children and what they would call moronic people, I imagine. Because that's the audience they think read comic books. Children and morons. That's why when you read things like, the idiotic books that come out right now, like Lockjaw, and you think to yourself, this is written by a moron. What kind of idiot would write something like this? It's not written by a moron. It's written by a person who thinks he's talking to a moron. He thinks the reader is a moron, and he's trying to sell him something. He's either a moron or a child, so he has to talk to him like a moron or a child. That's why these books are the way that they are, because they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to insert that propaganda into your life, especially to our children. That's what it's doing, okay? Because they already are in the school system, and they're already there trying to teach it to people in the school system. So they're trying to do an end run around the free time that children have as well, and they're trying to stick this into their hands for free. Because, even last year, you had plenty of stories about Marvel shipping stuff that nobody wanted, nobody asked for. They're just sticking it in people's hands. So I think that's what this is. That's what this industry has become. It's just the printing press now for this leftist kind of propaganda that's supposed to be shoved into the hands of children. That's what it is. And this is really important. And what does this have to do with Splatto Del Gato comics? Well, I was listening to another video recently. I think it was Raging Golden Eagle. Not sure, but I think it was. He was talking about the fact that, maybe we have to admit right now, with all this that's going on, that we can't change comics and their system back to what they were. We can't change the industry back to what it was. We can't change it back to a good product producer. We just can't. Maybe we have to admit that. Maybe it's time to just take the old and burn it to the ground. And I would have resisted that idea up until just very recently when this stuff started happening, because I love those characters and I grew up those characters, and it's the history really that gets you and ties you into that. But maybe he's right. Maybe it's time to burn it to the ground, because if you have something like Splatto Del Gato comics coming out that will produce a good product, let's start fresh. Let's start anew. And I think that Zach is really kidding himself when he thinks that if he starts his company, which he has every intent of doing, that he's only going to produce small amounts of things, and that he's only going to get maybe about 300,000 from his Jawbreakers Indiegogo campaign now, because it's partly becoming a funding of his new company. I can see him easily getting $500,000 before this is over, because people want to support this, because they're tired of being talked to like morons. And the reason why this is so important is, us, the customers, basically we're coming to realize that right now. It's either the big companies get their act together and go back to being an industry instead of being a cult, instead of being a religion, instead of being a club, instead of being a guild. They need to go back to producing superior product, or they're going to get burned to the ground with sales. When new companies like this, and this will probably just be the first of these new companies, if they try to compete against them, they're going to get burned to the ground with sales. It's just the way it's going to be. And maybe sometime down in the future, our beloved heroes would just be shipped out to these new companies. And Zach is always talking about the fact that in war, you don't take over a country by putting a soldier at every door. You take over key installations. You take over the power plant, you take over the water source. And comics is a key installation. That's why this is so important. That's why this is so important to them. It is a key installation. With all due respect to the people in games, whether they be video games or RPGs, then their problems with the left and trying to take over their industries as well, I don't think they're as key in installations as comic books are. Because, again, they're the pamphlets of this culty religion of the left that they are trying to stick into the hands of our children in their free time to turn them into what they want, instead of being people who accept reality and seek the truth, things that help you actually think for yourself. Because again, comics, they're the front line. They're the front line of this industry. They're the ones they put in front. They're the ones they stick out, put at your door with their shiny little pamphlets to stick in your hands of your children. And here's where we say stop. Stop being ridiculous and trying to shove this down our throats. Because they already have most of the entertainment industry. They really do. These culty leftists, they have it. You try to get a book published right now. Gatekeepers, you want to talk about gatekeepers, you got to go through agents, and they are the most leftist people I've ever seen. You go look at bios of people on agency websites. Just go look. See how leftist they are. That's gatekeepers right there. They have gatekeepers. There is very little way for you to get something published in a book right now if you are very conservative, or if you have a conservative story, or if you just have a traditional story. But this is the crack in the dam right here with comics. This is the thing that could change not only this industry, but a lot of the entertainment industry, to show people that you need to give people what they're looking for. Stop preaching to them. Stop trying to sell them your leftist ideology. So that's just my thought on this. Everybody's given their own different kinds of thoughts on it, and this is just mine. It's a little different than everybody else's, so I thought I'd put it out there. But yeah, this is important. This new comic company that's coming out, it is important. This is a key installation, because a lot of people keep on talking about the fact that we don't want a culture war. Sorry, we're in the middle of it, and we need to defend this key installation. Anyways, thanks for listening to me rant. I'll talk to you later. Bye.